Today, we're stepping into a world where wishes might come with a hidden price tag. We're talking about the first chapter of Nathaniel, Thatcher, and the Wish Thieves. From the very first page, you get this sense of longing, yearning for something more. We meet Nathaniel, our protagonist, on his 12th birthday.
I mean, the way the world building is done, it's so subtle but so effective. Right from the start, you've got Nathaniel, this 12-year-old kid. He lives in, get this, his cube of solitude. Just the name itself. It tells you so much about his life, right? Surrounded by maps and adventure books, but like yearning for a world he can only experience through those.
Exactly. And, the author doesn't come right out and say what his illness is, but the fact that they use the term like bubble boy,
Right.
it hints at like the severity
Oh, yeah.
of his situation.
Yeah.
Creates that instant feeling of isolation,
Right.
being trapped.
Yeah.
Even though, like you said, his room's filled with all these, imagined journeys.
Yeah. And it's heartbreaking. I don't know about you, but like you see how much his mom, Susie, wants to protect him. I mean, especially when you realize the author drew from her own experiences with prolonged illness when creating Nathaniel.
Really adds another layer to it, doesn't it? Suddenly it's not just fiction anymore.
It makes you think, what if that were me?
So we've got Nathaniel yearning for adventure, for freedom, but he's also got this mom, Susie, who's incredibly, almost obsessively focused on keeping everything clean, sterile.
That push and pull between protection and freedom is a constant throughout the story.
It really makes you think about like those cages, those intentional cages we build sometimes, out of love, right? Like Susie's so desperate to keep Nathaniel safe, but by doing that, she's kind of, adding to that feeling of isolation.
Totally.
It's that really complex dynamic. I think a lot of readers can, relate to that in some way.
Absolutely. And that tension, it just keeps building, right? When she finally lets him out for his birthday, they're having cheesecake, he's about to cut the cake for the first time ever, and then bam, coughing fit.
Oh.
I know.
Like, it's such a powerful moment because it's almost like his body is making the wish for him.
Yes.
That longing for health, for a life without those limitations. It's palpable.
And that's where things take this really fascinating turn. So he's confined back to his room, he's feverish, and then while he's unconscious, these two miniature figures appear, Boss and Phlegm.
Talking about an entrance, right?
Right.
So leading the pack, we've got Boss, all sharp suits and smooth talker vibes.
Very businesslike, all about getting down to the nitty-gritty.
Then there's Phlegm.
Yeah, you can tell just from the name that this one's not going to be winning any popularity contests.
You think? Green, slimy, rocking that thick Brooklyn accent. He's like the embodiment of don't judge a book by its cover, but also maybe do judge this book by its cover.
Well, you can probably guess what he's all about.
Yeah. Let's just say, not the most hygienic of creatures.
No, not at all.
But they drop this bombshell. They tell him that his wish has already been granted. Which, okay, that brings up so many questions, like how?
Right.
And at what cost?
Especially when Phlegm keeps calling Nathaniel a factory, right?
It's unsettling. Like, are they harvesting something from him? And remember those sprites you mentioned from the prologue? Stealing eyelashes, causing epidemics. It's like wishes in this world, they have a price, and you don't always know who's actually paying it.
It's true, and that's kind of where my distrust started to creep in. It's like, are these wish thieves, are they these benevolent beings granting wishes, or are they exploiting vulnerable people for their own gain?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And the author's really playing with our expectations here. On the surface, it's this whimsical idea, wishes being granted. But then she throws in these subtle details, these unsettling hints that make you question everything.
Yeah, it's like we're being set up to distrust these wish thieves. Nathaniel's not completely naive. He questions Boss,
Oh, yeah, he's like, hold on. Why all the secrecy?
Yeah.
He's not just blindly following along.
Not at all. He's using his brain,
Yeah.
using all that knowledge from his books, his stories, to try to make sense of things.
Which I guess is his way of taking control, even in this crazy situation.
Absolutely. He's not just a passive player in all of this.
So what's he going to do, stay or go? Okay, I got to ask, if you were in Nathaniel's shoes, what would you have done?
Honestly, I don't know. It's such a tough call.
Right, because on the one hand, you've got the unknown, these wish thieves with their questionable motives.
And on the other, you've got a chance to break free from your own personal cube of solitude, whatever that might look like. Nathaniel takes a deep breath and he goes for it.
It goes with Boss and Phlegm.
He does. He actually agrees to go with them.
And I think that's where his character really starts to shine.
Yeah.
He's not just this passive kid defined by his illness. Remember, like, how resourceful he is.
Yeah.
He even tries to negotiate with his mom using, logic and reason to try to get what he wants.
He's not afraid to stand up for himself. That's for sure.
Exactly. So when the wish thieves show up, as bizarre as they are, they represent something that he craves, right? It's freedom, it's agency, that chance to experience the world that's beyond his little cube of solitude.
Right.
It's almost like those heroes from his adventure books, right? They've come knocking right there at his sterilized door.
Yeah, it's true. And that's part of what makes his decision to trust them, even with all the red flags. It makes it so much more believable. Like, he's not just blindly following them. He's actively choosing to take a risk,
Right.
to step outside that comfort zone, even if it means, potential danger. And then there's that whole fear-mongering tactic. Oh, they'll lock you up in the loony bin if they catch you, talking to us. Makes you wonder who benefits from humans not seeing the wish thieves.
It's really a clever move by the author because it raises the stakes without having to, like, explicitly reveal anything, really sinister. We're left to kind of fill in those blanks ourselves.
Right.
To imagine what those consequences might be.
Right.
And those consequences, they could be far more terrifying than anything Susie could imagine.
Oh, absolutely. But then you've got Flem, who, okay, he's just so upfront about everything. Like, remember when he calls Cheesecake dirty playing?
Right. What was that about?
What was that?
I don't know. It seems like, you've got these different types of wish thieves, and they're, like, responsible for collecting different things. Okay, remember Flem said something like, that stuff makes for the best grit for the gook. It suggests that what they collect is being used as, like, an ingredient in some kind of, I don't know, magical process or something.
So are you saying that because Nathaniel's wish was for his health, that his phlegm is somehow, like, extra potent, like some kind of rare commodity in this wish thief economy?
It's certainly possible. And it brings up some, disturbing questions about what happens to these, we're calling them factories. Like, what happens to them once they're no longer useful? Do they just get discarded? I mean, remember those sprites from the prologue and that whole Matarosis epidemic? What if that's, like, the true cost of wish fulfillment?
Oh, wow.
These unintended consequences kind of ripple outward.
It's like the author's holding up a mirror to our own desires in a way, isn't it?
Yeah.
We make these wishes for health, for wealth, for love, but we don't always understand what those consequences could be, the hidden costs,
Or who might be profiting from those desires, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I think makes this story so compelling. It's not just about this boy and his wish. It's about power. It's about exploitation and that delicate balance between the choices we make and what happens.
I think for me, it's how the author uses this whole fantastical situation to really explore these themes that, well, they're pretty universal, right? Like longing and choice, and consequence. That's what elevates it. Makes it more than, I don't know, just a children's book.
There's this exploration of agency and this almost like illusion of control. Like, Nathaniel, he might be getting his wish granted.
Right.
But is it really his choice?
Yeah.
Or is he maybe just a pawn in this bigger game that he doesn't even understand?
And that actually reminds me of that whole parallel with his mom, Susie, because she's so determined to protect him, right? To keep him safe, even if it means keeping him within the walls of his, his cube of solitude. And it's almost like in doing that, she's perpetuating the very thing he wants to break free from.
Like she's made this wish, right, for his well-being.
Yeah.
But she could actually be holding him back without even realizing it.
That's such an interesting observation. Really adds another layer to that whole idea of good intentions backfiring, doesn't it? Because you've got Susie and the wish thieves, and they're both, in their own way, trying to help Nathaniel, but their methods, their desires, they could be doing more harm than good.
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder, are we ever really making choices in isolation? Or are our lives, like, constantly being shaped by, I don't know, the desires, the wishes of everyone around us?
What happens next? What are some things that we should be looking out for as we keep reading?
Well, I think first and foremost, I'm really curious to see how this plays out long term.
Yeah.
Like Nathaniel's wish, it was granted, but is his health, like, truly restored? Or is there a catch?
Right.
And then there's Flem. What is that little guy's deal? Is he just a collector, or is there something more to him?
Yeah, and let's not forget about boss and this mysterious boss that they keep mentioning, right? What are they really after? I mean, are they ultimately like benevolent?
No.
Or is something shadier going on? And what about those eyelash stealing sprites from the prologue? Are they somehow, I don't know, connected to the wish thieves? Or are they a totally different thing altogether?
Right. So many possibilities. But I think the most interesting question here, at least for me, is how Nathaniel is going to navigate this new world, you know?
Yeah.
Will he stay oblivious to the potential dangers? Or will his, that curiosity that he has, his resourcefulness, will it lead him to question the wish thieves and their motives?
He's already shown us he's not afraid to challenge authority, even if it's his own mother. So I have a feeling he's going to surprise us.
That's the beauty of a well-crafted story. It leaves you with more questions than answers. It sparks your imagination. It makes you think about the world in new and different ways.
It has definitely done that for us today. This deep dive, I think, has given us plenty to think about. Any final thoughts for our listeners before we wrap up?
Yeah, there's something I haven't brought up yet, but it's been on my mind. We talk a lot about the wish itself, right?
Mm-hmm.
That desire for something more, something different. But what about the wishers? What if the wish thieves? What if they're not the only ones who are exploiting something in all of this? What if Nathaniel's isolation, his deep desire for connection, what if that's what made him the perfect factory in the first place?
Wow. Now that is a thought-provoking question.
Thanks for joining us, everyone, and remember, be careful what you wish for.